I remember the first time I saw her, Emily. She was different. Something about her felt magnetic. Her long, raven black hair danced in the wind whenever she walked past my window, and her smile was the kind that lingered in your mind long after she was gone. She and her best friend, Sophie, had just moved into the old Victorian house next door. The place had been empty for years. Boarded windows, a gate rusted shut, and rumors of tragic stories whispered among the neighbors. But when Emily smiled at me one evening from her porch, the house didn't seem so dark anymore. Days turned into weeks, and soon I found myself spending more time with her. Emily had this quiet charm, delicate yet intense, and her gaze always seemed to see straight through me. Sophie, on the other hand, was wild and unpredictable. She didn't like me much. Whenever I was with Emily, Sophie seemed irritated, like I was trespassing on something I wasn't supposed to touch. One night, Emily invited me over while Sophie was out. We sat by the fireplace, sipping wine, her fingers occasionally brushing against mine. The air felt heavy, not with tension, but something colder, almost unnatural. "I feel like I've known you forever," Emily whispered. Her hand lingered on mine a little longer than before. I leaned in to kiss her, but just then the front door slammed open. Sophie stormed in, her face pale, her eyes wide. "You need to leave," she growled. "Now." Emily didn't argue. She just grabbed my hand and hurried me out the back door. "She's just protective," Emily said with a smile, but I knew better. Something about Sophie's face, like she'd seen a ghost, stayed with me. Curiosity got the best of me. The next day, I started asking around. Neighbors said Sophie and Emily moved in together, but before that, the house had belonged to Emily's family. "What happened to them?" I asked Mrs. Thompson, the elderly woman 2 doors down. She paused, her face tightening. "The daughter. She never left," she muttered. "Emily. She died in that house." My blood turned to ice. That night, I went back. I needed answers. From Emily, from Ofebebenta, from anyone who could explain what was happening. The house was dark, but I saw Sophie pacing inside. I knocked, and she jerked open the door. "You have no idea what you're doing," Sophie hissed. "Where's Emily?" I demanded. Sophie's face twisted with something between sadness and anger. "She's here," she whispered. "She's always been here." And then I heard Emily's voice, soft, delicate, coming from upstairs. I pushed past Sophie and ran to the bedroom. Emily stood there, her hair draping over her shoulders, that same magnetic smile curling on her lips. "You should have left," Sophie warned from behind me. Before I could react, Emily's smile stretched, too wide, too unnatural. The air turned frigid, and her eyes rolled back into her head, leaving only milky white orbs. "You shouldn't have come back," Emily whispered. The room erupted in a deafening bang. The walls shook, and the air turned suffocatingly cold. I stumbled back as Emily's form flickered like a dying light. Her face twisted, her fingers clawing at the air. "I tried to protect you," Sophie cried. Emily's face distorted into something monstrous. A shriek pierced the air, and then she vanished. Sophie collapsed beside me, breathing heavily. "She was my sister," she whispered. "She's been trying to come back, but she's not her anymore." I never saw Emily again. But some nights when I pass by that old house, I swear I still see her face, watching me from the upstairs window.